my friends, and welcome to What's Up. So nice to see you. My name is John Petersen from the Arlington Institute, and I get together every 2 weeks with my friend Gregg Braden for an unscripted, unanticipated conversation. We've got a studio audience, if you will, of almost 200 people. And we're coming to you from the Cool Font Resort in Berkeley Springs, and we've just done a day-long session of transition talks with Gregg, and a wonderful day to get together.
John, you have anything you'd like to talk about today?
Yeah, where the world's going. Yeah, in my mind, what's come together is the kind of the crystallization of the essence of what the kind of big picture is from my point of view, and it nests very nicely with what you talked about today. And it essentially argues that we're two years kind of to get a hold of where we're going and change the direction of this planet and humanity in particular. And in particular to build a model for a new world, a model for a new world. The Arlington Institute interest in trying to build a model rapidly, get a global conversation going about a model for a new world from the ground up.
One of the first times that John came to pick me up, didn't pick me up from the airport, I had just spoken at the DC Convention Center. You never know who's going to come to a DC program. And we were having conversations very similar to what we did today. And these 6 guys walked into the back of the room in dark suits, dark sunglasses in the room. They all had radios in their ears, you know. And they wouldn't sit down. They just stood along the back wall. It was a little unnerving for me. And then we went to break, and one of them came up to the stage to talk to me. And I said, "Why are you guys here?" And he said, "Because we wanted to hear how you share this information." And I said, "Do you have a problem with what I'm saying?" He said, "We don't have a problem because we want to share it, but we don't know the best way to do it with audiences without frightening them." And then here's the language he used. He goes, "We have computer models that we have used to model these scenarios," and this is very interesting. He said, and this is his words, he said, "Something has gone horribly awry." That's the word he used in the models. And he said, "I want to know what you think about that." And that ties directly in the conversation that we're having here. Because I said, I don't know what model he's using. But I said, I would imagine your model does not account for human consciousness and our ability to choose to transcend our trajectory. Just because we're on a trajectory, we have agency, is what it's called. And our agency and free will allow, and this is something that AI does not allow for. So when they're trying to predict crime, they look at someone's ancestry and they say, well, that person's going to be a criminal. They're not allowing for that person to transcend their past, to become more. Consciousness cannot be modeled into the computer models that we're looking at. And John, I think this is
by unconscious computers.
Well,
right?
exactly, and this is what we're looking at. And I think, John, what you're talking about is a terrestrial breakaway civilization. It's not a civilization in another world, but it's within our civilization.
Well,
here.
it's your notion of triumphing, being triumphant rather than competitive. You know, it's Bucky Fuller's notion that says, you know, you don't change the world by attacking the old one. You build a new model, and that makes the old one obsolete. The decisions we make in the next 2 years have not only extraordinary implications for civilization and for our species right now, it's kind of universal.
It's the timeline. We have a live audience here. How deep do you guys want to go? Late in the day, how deep do you want to go? You know, we could have this conversation anytime about building a new world, a new civilization, becoming the new human, and we could be feeling it's off in the future. And it would be a great conversation. what's happening right now in the world that we find ourselves in, and everybody in our streaming audience, is driving us to make these decisions quicker. What is it that's happening right now? Let's do a thought experiment right now. First of all, there are forces and organizations and individuals that want to change the climate on this planet. And if we were to meet all of those goals, without going into a lot of detail, we would be pushing carbon dioxide levels back to 212 parts per million. 180 is where the forests begin to die. It's concerningly close to that level. Forests would die, animals would become extinct, temperatures would drop, more ice in the northern hemisphere. That is not good for humans. Would you agree with that? All right, now, let's look at what else is happening. We are being encouraged, and I would have to say even pushed, into conflict on a global level. War, maybe World War III. Even if we don't go to the World War III, the net effect is that we are being pushed to deplete our armaments, deplete our resources, deplete the humans that are the warriors that fight, men and women in the military. Among the superpowers, it's not good for humans to deplete all of those resources and their ability to fight and resist. Would you agree with that? All right. At the same time, the social bonds that have always held our societies, communities, families, nations, and planet together are being consistently broken, all the way down to the point where we now are being encouraged to even question our own sexuality, our own gender, and blurring the lines between adult, child, male, female. When we break those social bonds, we become vulnerable to the ideas and the agendas of others. That's not good for humans, okay? Are you with me on this so far? All of these things are happening simultaneously, and when you begin to put all these pieces together, and the policies that are being written now and that are the laws that will be proposed in the new year, 2025, it's not good. None of it is good for human life. If it's not good for humans, who's it good for? As a scientist, I have to say it's good for life that is not human. Now, what does that mean? Well, we now are in the context of disclosure. The congressional hearings that are attempting to reveal our relationship to forms of life that are not, at least not originally from this part of town, from this world. And there's a lot, people have lost their lives that were going to testify. They suddenly are unalived. So we can do this on YouTube. And there's a lot of resistance to that. All these things are happening simultaneously, and there is a shelf date on this. All of the proposals are all focusing around the year 2030. And this, for me, puts a little bit different spin on what we're doing, John, because whatever it is we're going to do, we're going to be encouraged to relinquish facets of our society and a level of social engineering. They want to change the world around us and change the world within us to make a form of a world by the year 2030 that is very, very different than the world we have today.
I certainly agree with you in concept. I think it's just on a faster track than that. I think that...
oh, I do too.
That, you know, again, the indications I've got are rather specific from multiple sources that say that it's about 2 years, and that the things that you just talked about are essentially diversionary. This is the magician saying, look at all of this over here. And they're not, and you're missing this big point is that the technology is just becoming more and more invasive and controlling, and, you know, in terms of your location and your money and your what you think, and connecting you know, you're ingesting these nanobots and other such things that already they can identify you individually exactly where you are, and literally they talk about being able to understand what you're thinking from satellites, and that it's synchronous process that goes uplink and downlink, and so they can put thoughts in your mind. I mean, it's wild and crazy. And so there's a clear place in the very near future that you can see that this whole thing just kind of closes down, and there ain't no humans like there used to be.
Well, this is Ray Kurzweil again. His book Singularity came out earlier this year, 2024. Identifies from a technological point of view. There is a massive grid that is being developed. Starlink is a big part of that. We can't do it without Starlink. How many satellites are there? Is it 16,000?
No. It's more than that, 40 or 50,000.
Okay, 40 or 50,000 satellites that will literally blanket every square inch of our planet with this communication, the Internet of all things. The good news is everyone will have connection. The bad news is no one can escape connection. And that is the kind of grid that is needed for what is proposed as the singularity, where everyone, everything has a digital representation.
And so it has a distinct possibility, the likelihood that it just becomes a surprise that someday you wake up and, you've got no options that are left.
Well, there is a school of thought that says the AI is the alien. The AI is the invasion, if you want to think of it that way. The AI is the takeover. When we look into the ancient texts, this theme that we're talking about is not new. It has different language. That's the only thing. We're talking about high tech. You look in the past. First, what we're told in so many of the texts, and Sitchin, I think, was right. I don't agree with all of Zecharia Sitchin's conclusions. I think his translations were pretty accurate. The cuneiform from the ancient Sumerian and Mesopotamian texts, it's interesting that we are the product of an intentional act, and the texts say that, and many others do as well, that the intelligence that's responsible for us drops by to see us about every 3,500 years.
That's right.
And we're now at 3,500 years. Yeah. Within about 5 years, that they were here about 2,000 years ago, took a human baby, educated that baby, and brought it back to Earth to inform us, and the people of the Earth killed that baby. We all know who that was. Pardon me? His proposed birthday, yeah. So when we look at this and you say, well, what would be, it sounds crazy until you begin to do the comparison of what we're calling aliens, our ancestors called angels and demons, interdimensional angels and demons. And there has been a war, a battle, a rebellion that has gone on since before we got here. We only got here 200,000 years ago. We became part of that without even knowing it. We've been deceived into participating in that battle, and that the battle has a conclusion within our lifetimes. Now, there's all kinds of interpretations. If you're biblically inclined, you're looking at end-time prophecies, and if you're a scientist, you're looking at timelines, and if you're an archaeologist, you're looking at the Nephilim, and all. And it's interesting; it's all come up in the literature now. Everybody's talking about the Nephilim, the beings that were here in the beginning. What is the purpose? If the changes they're making to our planet and to us are not good for us, who are they good for? This is where you start to sound crazy. Yeah. Start to sound crazy, except the evidence all points to an intelligence that's not human, that wants to play a greater role on this planet and wants this planet to be more inhabitable with as little resistance as possible. And apparently, this is why the disclosure is being resisted. It's not about, nobody cares if we got flying saucers. Nobody cares if you've got some gray aliens. We're all ready for that. It's about the intent and about the technology that these beings have. So it's something to think about. If you think everything that's happening is completely random and spontaneous, then you'll be reluctant to look at the patterns and reluctant to look at these things. If you believe that this is too much to be just random events, that there's something going on. We're barreling down the road towards some kind of a conclusion. To me, that puts a little bit of an urgency to claim our humanness, to claim the deep truth of what it means to be human, to live our best lives, because that is the way you triumph over the evil that wants to deny our humanness.
And so what you have to do is effectively disconnect, untether yourselves in order to embrace those ideas. You've said today, and I've said many times, is it's really easy to hear these words. They just go by you and you say, yeah, it makes linguistic sense. But you don't think and internalize it and think about what this really might be.
To live fully, love fully, forgive, heal. All of the things that make us human that the forces want to deny within us. And that's how we triumph.
Don't get caught up in the little stuff they're all trying to.
Yeah, World War III.
Yeah, right. No, literally.
No, I know.
I mean, there's a much bigger thing that's going on here that is of amazing kind of implications. And thank you, Greg, and thank you. We come back again, and thank you all.
Thank you, John.
We'll see you in a
Thank you all
couple
for tuning in. God bless. Love you all. Bye-bye.